Hi, everyone. I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm here today with Emmy nominee Angelique Midthunder, the casting director on the FX comedy hit Reservation Dogs, that last year completed its third and final season. So, Angelique, let's jump right in and talk about the casting process that led to your four young Res Dogs leads, DeFero Lunatai, Deborah Jacobs, Polina Alexis, and Lane Factor. What did the actors embody that made them perfect for their roles?
I mean, I think just that they all kind of are authentically from that world. When we did the casting for the pilot, Sterling Harjo, the showrunner, and we road tripped all over Oklahoma, as well as doing kind of the standard casting process. But we found Lane Factor, who plays Cheese. We found him right there at one of the open casting calls in Oklahoma. He ended up being a series regular on the show. The other ones all came from kind of different aspects of either whether they're what we call urban Indians or they came from kind of the res life. They were all just kind of the perfect and combination of people that embodied the kind of present day Native American diaspora, but they all kind of came together and really fit. And we ended up casting probably about half of, outside of the series regulars, we ended up casting about half of the cast right there in Oklahoma from those initial casting calls on the reservations.
Wow. And it's true that Willie Jack was originally supposed to be male, right? But you were so impressed with Paulina that it became a female role instead.
Yeah, that was one of those things. When I saw Paulina, I was like, Sterling, we found our Alora, as because it's really originally scripted as like one girl and three guys that kind of ran this gang together. And I was like, we found her, I got her. And he was like, I love her. She's not Alora. And I was like, what? But Sterling always has something up his sleeve that's like better than what you could have imagined. So of course, down the line, he's like, I know, she's Willie Jack. So it was just great. It was just great.
And Angelique, what pieces of casting during season three are you proudest of now in hindsight? Maybe the flashback episode in the middle of the season, maybe that, and having the whole cast back for the finale.
That's right. Yes. I mean, definitely the flashback episode, Housemaid of Bongs, where it flashed back to all of our, beloved elder generation, played by Wes Studi, Graham Greene, Casey Camp, um, Gary Farmer. This episode had all of them in high school. So that was a challenge. Luckily I got a heads up before the season started and I was able to kind of get my thinking cap on and get a head start on it because it was like casting the pilot all over again in the middle of season three. So but we had parameters, right? We had to find people that matched each established actor to play them when they were young. So it was a, that was that's
Yeah,
probably
you can't very well have them wear heavy makeup and have them look like teenagers.
no, no, and it was just like the vibe too, like having, real young people that were able to kind of go back and play an era too that they had never experienced the 1970s. So that is something I'm probably proudest of, especially for season three, was that episode. And the kind of combination of casting. We have Isaac Arianes, who played the young Graham Greene, who Graham Greene, an Oscar nominee. Isaac was an Emmy nominee. I think that probably the youngest Native American Emmy nominee. So that was like just super cool, bringing seasoned actors like that alongside Mato, played the young Wes Studi. He does the music for the show, and he was like right under our nose, and kind of wanted to turn in a tape and gave a great performance and just a combination of people, like I said, from like seasoned actors um to to non-actors, if you will, which is kind of where the magic in the show lies anyway, is we kind of do that with every episode and we just keep it fresh that way. So yeah, that's probably my proudest, but definitely the finale episode where literally the entire cast was there, including Lily Gladstone made an appearance, it was just, I did make a set visit on the day when they did the funeral scene, and literally the whole entire cast was there. And that was just like a moment for me personally where I was just like, wow, we did this, we did this together over the past 3 seasons, and to see everyone together was incredible. And of course, I can't not mention having Ethan Hawke in episode 9. That was also
Mhm.
really incredible when I got the script. Well, we're seeing the scripts as they come out, and at some point we realize that Alora's dad is going to be a new character, and then it's revealed that he's white. That was just a lot of fun because that opens up a huge world to us. That I think I went through my process, but I think that Sterling kind of had Ethan in mind the whole time. Um, so it was just really fun to see that come to fruition as well. I mean, how rewarding to have someone like that on the show.
Totally. You were really kind of a secret weapon though for this show, obviously from what you were from having doing the casting from day one. I mean, it's hard to believe, Angelique, this is the first ever TV series to exclusively feature Indigenous writers and directors, which I know you didn't have anything to do with, but an almost entirely Indigenous North American cast too. Um, uh, I mean, the fact that it took into the mid 2020s or almost, I mean, the early 2020s for this to happen is kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, it was but like you and I were discussing before we started, right? The whole new world of like Zoom and social media. I mean, I don't know if it would have been if we could have done it in the same way before now. We started this in 2019. Before COVID, we started casting the pilot, and that's when, like I said, Sterling and I just hit the road and went all over, and we had these huge casting calls with hundreds of people showing up at every casting call, and at the same time, taking submissions and finding people online, throughout the series, finding people on Instagram, and doing social media casting calls and really opening it up to all kinds of people from the Indigenous current, the present day community, models, artists, musicians. And so yes, it is kind of unfortunate that this didn't happen 15, 20 years ago, and that it's just happening now. But post COVID, we got into Zoom, and social media became so big because of being stuck in our houses, that it did open up a whole new way of bringing people from all different areas into the show, as opposed to 10 years ago, literally we're just in our offices in LA and people are coming into audition. So I guess things happen as they're meant to, but yes, it was super rewarding to be a part of it, and I'm really thrilled and grateful. It's kind of the thing I'm proudest of doing in my entire career.
So you basically have Zoom and COVID to thank for being able to build an impressive Indigenous acting talent database. Um,
Go figure.
yeah, but you have been able to do that. It sounds like, and I know that Sterling has been quoted as saying that there's a myth that there are so few Native actors out there, but you certainly haven't found that to be the case.
Well, like I said, Sterling and I always just keep an open mind to including not just actors, just Native people of all kinds. And I think like one thing that I kind of I don't know, specialize in, but something I often focus on is just looking for people who are interesting, people who are comfortable in their own skin, who can disappear into a role. So, and it's not always actors. And sometimes we get people who are pop into our show and we never see them again on another show because they're not trained actors and not trying to be actors, but man, they make great characters in the show, you know, and so that's what I'm always out there looking for. And I'm just always kind of, you know, Sterling also does this, obviously, just we both always kind of try to keep up on kind of who's doing what in the Indigenous community, so that when something pops up, I mean, in I think it was season 2, the uncles episode, and Sterling says, "You know who I like?" He is like, "Why don't you audition the guy from the Fleetwood Mac, you know, the cranberry juice guy?" And I was like, I knew what he was talking about, you know. It was like a TikTok video, right? And this guy's like drinking cranberry juice, playing Fleetwood Mac on a skateboard, and I knew exactly, you know. So it's like just, you know, both of us being a part of that culture and having that shorthand, I think too, really like enriches the process.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about too with
Yeah.
Fleetwood Mac and the cranberry juice. Sadly, I do know. I was actually, because I love dropping names, Angelique, I was speaking to Lily Gladstone about a month ago, you know, about her role on Under the Bridge. And she was talking about how inspired she is to see so much Indigenous talent working right now in Hollywood, not just on Res Dogs, but all over. And that obviously, again, hasn't always been the case. And but also how positive it is to see Native people in roles that where historically they haven't been given entry to. You know, not just the same Westerns. Again, besides Res Dogs, not just the same Westerns and all that over and over, which no doubt you've noted too.
Absolutely. And you know, too, to see Indigenous people playing roles that don't necessarily need to be scripted for Indigenous people, you know, just because you're Native American doesn't mean you can't play a detective, you know, or you know, anything. So you know, and I think that this generation is really seeing that in a way that, you know, throughout my career, and my husband's an actor and he's older, of course, and it's like he only was playing in westerns for decades, you know, and it's like we kind of always hoped and dreamed that things would change, but of course we didn't know if, when, or how it would happen. So, you know, for me to be able to be a part of kind of this part of history, it feels really poignant and extremely significant. So yeah, that's very exciting.
Well, just to get rid of that whole idea of, you know, Native people being the squaws and the savages and the white cowboys were the heroes, and John Wayne riding in, you know, to kill them, and all it was, you know, it's embarrassing to think in hindsight that this was just the accepted norm. Um, I remember my thinking, Angelique, being totally turned around when I was 13 years old and went to see Little Big Man, and which was a seminal experience for me to see, you know, the story told from the other side of the Native people having been horribly, unjustly slaughtered and the victims essentially of a genocide. Uh, Yet, you know, I brought that up. Um, I brought that up, you know, to uh, uh, shoot, I'm forgetting her name. Oh, I'm sorry, to Paulina when I interviewed her, and she hadn't seen the film, and I'm just like, you know, maybe that's good that this doesn't necessarily have to be part of everyone's experience anymore. That it's just, you know, that there's such a norm now of Indigenous actors that it's just commonplace and everyday.
Definitely, this generation has grown up with an entirely different experience than we did. I mean, my dad watched John Wayne movies. You know, I personally never met a Native American person until I was in my 20s. So it's, you know, it's just an interesting experience, the world that we grew up in, the world that I've been in now for the past, you know, over 25 years, and then just watching it all evolve, and watching this new generation, like you said, Paulina's generation, that you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Paulina and DeFaro never watched a John Wayne movie, or never were exposed to one. And there are so many options now, for them, for things to see, where they have the opportunities to see Indigenous people representing themselves. You know, I think it's tremendously positive for the psyche of, you know, this generation of people, uh, to not feel put in a box, you know, or not to be seen by the greater, just population as a certain way.
And of course, as you say, it would be nice to see Indigenous performers that are cast, and it has and their ethnicity has nothing to do with character or the portrayal. That it's just incidental to who they are in the show or the film. Although we probably wouldn't cast Dustin Hoffman now as Jack Crabbe in Little Big Man. But it's great to see that that there's also we also see a Native American superhero now in Alaqua Cox and Echo. That's amazing progress. You wouldn't have seen that even probably 5 years ago.
That's right. It just goes along the lines of what we're talking about. The possibilities are endless. I think like I commend Hollywood for the studios for having the vision to create these projects and to go, okay, now's the time. People are ready to see Echo, become its own show. And yeah, I really and I also commend the viewers for getting out there and watching these shows and saying, yeah, we want to see everybody represented on screen. Superheroes don't have to look like Superman, or Batman. Like they can look like any number of things. So it's definitely an exciting time, and I can't even imagine what's around the corner, but I'm just excited for it. I know it's just going to continue to grow and expand and continue to blow our minds.
Are you finding that Res Dogs actually opened a lot of doors all by itself to the community and what's happening now in terms of casting and films and projects?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been incredible, like you mentioned, a lot of, all of the writers, all of the directors were Indigenous. Sterling Harjo practically mentored almost every single one of them. A lot of them were first timers. That in season one, now we see them directing network shows that don't necessarily have Indigenous cast or content. We see them writing on network shows. We see their movies popping up at Sundance and South by, all because they got the chance, because Sterling and FX at Reservation Dogs, they said, okay, Sterling, we believe in you. If you believe in this director, you know we're going to give them a shot. And now they're out there making their own films. They just needed a foot in the door. And the fact that Reservation Dogs, Sterling, FX as a team were able to kind of open that door for people who were talented to just show what they could do, has been really inspiring, and just heartwarming to see it, uh, just to see everyone's progress.
Totally. Uh, Now, Angelique, your surname would indicate that you're Native yourself, but in fact, it's your husband who was born Indigenous. You were not.
Right. Yes. My husband is he's an enrolled tribal member, and so, our kids, our family are all enrolled tribal members at Fort Peck. They're Lakota, Nakota, Dakota. Right. So I'm not. I'm actually from Thailand. But yeah, so we're kind of multicultural family. But we've found so many similarities between their the East and West. Yeah, it just works.
And what originally drew you to casting?
What's that?
What drew you to want to be a casting director?
Oh, well, I mean, again, what we kind of talked before starting about, that I had done some acting, and I said, yeah, reluctantly, because basically what happened was I had gone to a casting call. I didn't even know what it was. It was in the paper. This is like in the 90s. It was in the paper. It was a casting call, and it said something about riding horses. It was in the jobs section. So I don't know. I thought it was like going to be a job breezing horses at a racetrack or working on a ranch, and that was kind of, horses are my jam. So I went to this thing, and it was a casting call. They're like, memorize these pages and go in the room and do it, and I was like, oh, that's not really what I'm here for. But I did it, and I think it's like you know, how ironic, because I had no investment in actually doing this. I was able to just like, you know, what we say, like throw it away. So I was able to throw it away, ended up getting the part. I did it. I was like, acting makes me feel weird. But I made friends with the casting director who was like, I know you're not into this, but maybe you want to like come work for me. And I just started, you know, as an assistant then. And after I did the acting job, started as an assistant, and I loved it. And I met my husband on that first movie. It was actually for an Indigenous role that I went for. And like I said, this is in the 90s. I didn't know any better, you know, and I met my husband on set. He was an actor in the movie, and he was like, "Oh yeah, oof, you shouldn't do that." And you know, I joke that like my whole career has been an atonement for that one act. Um, because it's, you know, like I learned, and I became an ally, if you will, you know, and just as an organic part of the Indigenous community too, you know, married in 25 years. I've been going to powwows and ceremonies on the reservation and everything. So yeah, so the casting aspect of that, working in the Indigenous space, means so much to me, because like I said, my kids are Native, and I want them to be able to see themselves reflected accurately on screen, and for their kids as well. So yeah, it's just all been, I guess, ironic and serendipitous at the same time.
In being a recovering actor, I'm sure it helps you as a casting director too, because you've been on both sides.
I
Um,
do. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just honestly, the acting itself wasn't as awful as the auditioning process. So, you know, I really like that, keeps me so focused on the actors too. When I'm doing the work, I always want to make sure they have time to prepare, and if they need to ask questions, and you know, I just always want
yeah,
the process to give the actor the opportunity to put their best foot forward.
they have such a thick skin. I have no idea how actors do it. I would be way too insecure. We're going to actually leave things there. All three seasons of Reservation Dogs are streaming on Hulu. Angelique Midthunder, best of luck to you this Emmy season, and thanks for joining us at Gold Derby.
Thank you.